So you saw in Sammy's demo that she had an extensive system for using guidelines to correspond to different things, and I would recommend that you do the same. So you might want to start a new layer called transverse section. And in that, I would highly recommend you use the same color of lines to determine the location of the objects in the plan. So I'm going to start with housing. So this building's footprints, that's going to be pretty easy because there's only a few of them. I'm going to use a line and just drag this down, and it should correspond to this point on the plan. So if I have corresponded this correctly, let's just double check. I could draw a line down and bring that over, and this should hit where my points are on the section cut line. So I'm going to just draw wherever I have buildings that are being cut through. So here, here. This is a bit funny because they're just cutting through the corners, but we'll take it like that. All right, so all of these lines that we have are building lines, right? So we're going to make a sublayer called building footprints. Make that the same color as it was in our plan, which is cyan. And let's just make sure everything here is set by layer and move these objects into that layer. So now we have projected those lines down to the section cut line. Now what we need to do is figure out how high they are. What I would recommend doing is making a little like 1 meter high linear array over here so that you can correspond heights to 1 meter increments. I'll show you how to do that right now. So I'm going to draw a line using L for line from this corner, and I'm just going to draw it up here. Doesn't matter where, I'm just going to get it up close to this line here. And then I'm going to go div. Div stands for divide. And it's going to ask me for the number of segments, but instead of choosing a number of segments, I'm going to hit length. And I'm going to choose 1 as my length, which means 1 meter length. And then it's going to divide this line and set a point at 1 meter heights. Now what I can do is use another line to set a linear array. So I'm going to just make sure I'm on my transverse section, actually move all of these into that. And then I'm going to draw another line, L for line. And I'm going to start here at the base. And I'm going to hit Shift to constrain this all the way over. And then I'm going to use linear array. So the command for that is array linear. It says number of items 2. So we need to figure out how many lines we need. So I'm just going to escape out of that and draw a selection window around these points. It says 29 points have been selected. So that means we need 29 items. So then I'm going to go back to my line, select it, and go array linear. Number of items is going to be 29 because that's how many points we have. And the first reference point is going to be here at the base, and then it's going to go up to the next point. So now we have a grid or a set of rows at 1 meter increments, and we can begin drawing a cut line around the buildings at their approximate heights. Now this is where you need to use your powers of observation to understand where the heights are. If you followed Sammy's tutorial and you have modeled the buildings based on their base height and their maximum height, then you have a 3D model of buildings, and when you'd cut your section, you would have gotten section lines through those heights. But if you haven't done that, which I haven't, then you have to project the building heights to a size that is relevant to your site. So these are single family houses, and I know this area well. I know that these are usually between 2 and 3 stories tall. And a single story is about 3 meters tall. So if these are 2 or 3 story buildings, they are between 6 to 9 meters high. If you were getting really precise, you would probably want to take a look at Google Earth and go into Street View and just check out the buildings along where you're cutting and see if you can detect how high they are based on the number of stories that are there. But just to get some basic buildings in, I'm going to draw my section line as a guesstimate of how high they are. And I'm just going to draw them with flat roofs just to get the massing in. One other thing to remember is that these accessory buildings are usually garages or laneway houses, and those are usually a maximum of 1 to 2 stories. Unless you know that there's a laneway house specifically in your section cut, I would just make this 1-story building. So I'm going to always make my garages 3 meters high. So now I'm going to draw on my cut line. I'm going to use PL for polyline, and I'm going to start at my point, and I'm going to say this is a 3-story house, so I'm going to draw it 12 meters high. So I just need to count the number of lines up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's here. And then I draw it over here to the next edge, and then I hit enter, and now I have a line. You can't see it because all of the other lines are there. So if you want, you can grab all of these lines and go to the properties and just set them to a lighter color. Maybe you want to do light gray. And that way your other line is going to stand out on top of it. And I would actually keep these together with the lines that are associated with the layer. So I might move this to the buildings layer. And I'm going to keep drawing section cut lines where these buildings are, depending on their heights. So now you can see we have all of the cut lines through the buildings, but there's elevational information behind that would be important to see in this section. So the next thing I would do is turn back on those elevation marker lines and then use a lighter line weight, so a different color of line, to indicate the elevation behind